Hello everybody, welcome to this week's live session. Hopefully everything is working. I'm David Jones. If you've never attended these before, I run them every Friday at 2:30 UK time. Have a look ahead to the major news for next week and then jump into the markets, have a look at a mix of markets, stock market indices, FX, gold, silver, oil, Bitcoin, all of that stuff, see where the opportunities might be over the next week. And then any stuff you want looking at. If there's stuff you want looking at, if you can put it in the chat on YouTube, I'm more than happy to take a look at it when I've looked at the stuff I want to look at. It's been an interesting week this week. I mean, this oil got clobbered yesterday. I was actually long oil. I got stopped out yesterday. We'll talk about that a bit more. I was in that trend, or I thought I was in that trend, and then bang, falls off a cliff yesterday. So that's interesting. We'll have a look at that in a bit more detail. The dollar, I still fancy buying the dollar down here. I mean, it has been clobbered on Tuesday of this week. It's hanging around that 104 level, the dollar index. So I thought that was interesting. I'm long the FTSE at the moment from earlier in the week. That's done all right. It's done all right today. A bit of a wobble yesterday. I was underwater after I put the trade on. And I'm long sterling Aussie, which has been a bit all over the place, sterling Aussie. I'm about break even on that at the moment. And I think bond markets might be interesting this afternoon. Where's the T-bond gone? Because it tried breaking out last night, and we have had the trend. If you look at markets like the Bund, UK gilts, and US T-bonds, I think they're quite interesting at the moment. They tend to be that not that popular with retail investors. But there's UK gilts, for example. It's a big move. It's a 700-point move since the 23rd of October, off some big levels again. There we go, off the lows from last year. So there's stuff going on in different markets. We'll come back and have a look at them in a bit more detail. Before we do all that, let's just get through some housekeeping. This presentation is only for educational purposes. It does not contain and should not be construed as containing investment advice or an investment recommendation or an offer of or solicitation for a transaction in any financial instrument. David Jones accepts no responsibility for any use that may be made of these comments and for any consequences that result. You should consider whether you understand how spread bets, CFDs, futures, foreign exchange work, and whether you can afford to take the high risk of losing your money. Trading is risky. Okay. So next week, what to watch out for? Pretty quiet week, I thought, next week when I look. Fed minutes on Tuesday. That's the big one. Tuesday night. So the minutes from the most recent meeting of the US Central Bank, the Federal Reserve. Be interesting to see what they make of the economy. Any hints they can give about future interest rate directions, all of that. And then on Thursday, a UK specific one. The UK autumn forecast. I think that's from the government, isn't it? Is it like a mini budget? I can't remember. But an outlook on the state of the economy and all of that for the UK. So that's on Thursday of next week. But Tuesday's the big one for next week. So let's see. Bit of volatility off the back of that. You would have thought for stock markets, the dollar, and of course stuff like gold and all of that, anything that's connected to the dollar. A quick word about the trading course I do. If you've watched any of these videos, you know for the past few years, I have run a trading course, medium-term trading, short-term trading. My approach is everything I do is in that course. I've been trading for, how long have I been trading for? Started in 1996, so it's a long time. Is that 29 years? 29 years. There you go. Lost money for many years in the beginning, and then I've traded profitably since the losing period ended. But I think, you never stop learning in this business. I've been trading fairly intensely for the last sort of 13, 14 months or so. Learned a lot from that, and all of that stuff is in the course, the shorter term trading bit. And the medium term trading is probably still the approach I prefer because it's just a lot more relaxed, but both approaches are in there. I think most trading courses are rubbish. They sell you the dream. They're done by people who don't trade. That's it. I've been in this business for a long time. I've seen a lot of this nonsense over the years. So to prove my approach works, I traded this account last year. If you go back to YouTube last year, you'll see the videos when I'm updating it. I put £4,000 in an account in November, traded it through to the end of January, The result was booked profits of £2,200. Past performance, of course, is not a reflection of future performance, but it shows I was profitable. Obviously, there were losing trades in there. I actually had a good period in terms of wins to losses. I did 54 trades in 3 months, which is about standard for me. I'm not in and out 30 times a day trader. 66% of trades were correct, which is much better than my historical average. My historical average is 58%. So for me, about 6 out of 10 trades work out. So it was a good period, but it was profitable. Did it again in May to July with an account with £5,000 in. Booked profits on the account were £3,116. The hit rate, the win rate, much more my historical average, 58% win rate. You can see the P&L at the bottom, blah, blah, blah. There you go. These stats are on my website with some of the trades I did. I launched a WhatsApp group in January for people on the course for me to talk about what I think of markets, trades I'm looking at, all that sort of stuff every day, and any questions. Daily update from me, markets I'm watching, trades I'm running, and a Q&A. People can fire in questions throughout the day. I opened it up to anybody from about June, July, I think this year. I can't remember. So if you want to, you can subscribe to that. You can try it. Try it for a month and see what you think. If you use the code YouTube, you get a 20% discount off the first month. All the details, there's a snapshot of what it looks like, the daily ramble from me about what I'm looking at. All the details are on the website, davidjonestrading.co.uk. The one thing I do for free, in addition to this YouTube stuff, is a newsletter. I send out a weekly newsletter. I've not sent it out for a month because I'm really lazy. But if you go to the website, davidjonestrading.co.uk, you can sign up on the front page for the newsletter. So when I decide to grace the newsletter list with the next update, you'll get it. I need to get my backsliding gear again on that, to be honest. But all the stuff you can see on the website, you can sign up for the newsletter, all of that sort of thing. There you go. Right, one last bit. This bit is free as well. Over the last 5 weeks, some of you will know, I've done these invitation-only webinars. I really enjoy doing them. It's a bit different from the normal stuff I do. I do enjoy doing these YouTube live streams, but these YouTube live streams tend to be a quick rattle through loads of markets, smash in some trades, wrap it all up by 3:30, go and watch Netflix. The invitation-only webinars, I looked at tackling real challenges that people have with trading, and of course I can relate to this because I had it for years in the beginning. So the first invitation-only webinar, what one thing would you change about your trading? Really interesting responses to that. At about 60 responses from people. So built the webinar around that. Surprisingly to some, most of the issues people face are psychological. They are not strategy based. So really a lot of insight in there. And I did one a week yesterday. If 70% of traders lose, as we know, it's probably more than that to be honest, what do I need to do differently? So I did that a week last Thursday. If you would like to view the recordings of those, if you haven't seen the recordings or you weren't there live or whatever, drop me an email and I'll send you the link. dj@davidjonestrading.co.uk. Some people have emailed me already this week. I haven't done anything yet. I'll do it over the weekend. I'll send the links out over the weekend when all the emails are in. I'm doing this in conjunction with my new trading broker partner. I've mentioned to some of you, I've partnered with the company. The reason I'm doing it, there's a couple of guys there I used to work with in the old days when I was back at IG, when I used to work at IG Group. And we're trying to do things a little bit differently. There's going to be lots more of these webinars for people who are clients of the broker through me. To find out more, go to that website, bit.ly/David Trade. You can sign up and open an account. You'll be on the list then for future webinars. Future webinars I do will not be getting advertised publicly. But if you've got an account, you get them. There you go. But if you want to see these last two, drop me an email. All of this stuff is in the description to this video. So if you want to check anything out, have a look at the description, sign up for the WhatsApp group, all that stuff, or go to the website. Okay, happy? Good. Right, let's take a look at the markets, see what's going on. Where shall we start today? Let's start with stock markets, shall we? Let's have a look at those. I think it's interesting up here. Start with the S&P. We have seen continued strength in stock markets. I mean, we had the surge on Tuesday on that. I think it was the inflation data, wasn't it? Was it the PPI data? Producer price index stuff, I think, from memory. And we've been a bit flat Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to where we are now. But it is interesting up here. You know, we had these highs in the summer for US stocks. About 4,600 on the S&P. The market sells off to 41, so we see a 10% drop into the end of October. Holds above the old lows from May. And bang, we're back up here. We're within 100 points or so of the highs for the year. So it's really interesting. I did wonder if we'd see a bit of a problem in this sort of area. We've got the correction from the summer. We've got the highs from October, but we haven't. So where we are now, if you really wanted to go short US stocks, this is the level. I think it's quite interesting to watch what happens. Do we see these markets into the end of the year, so how long is that, 6 weeks, break out through these old highs and set new highs for the year? I don't know, but let's see. Let's see what happens. We've seen a 10% rally in the S&P in the last few weeks. Gut feeling suggests that perhaps we should see some sort of correction, but it's not happening yet. So I think it's going to be really interesting what happens up here. So if you absolutely wanted to go short, I am quite tempted to go short, even though I'm always permeable on US stocks. I am quite tempted up here to go short. Perhaps it's one for Monday. We'll see. If you're in the WhatsApp group, I'll expand a bit more on that next week. But it is interesting up at these levels. So break or slide down time. Same thing for the NASDAQ, of course. Look at the NASDAQ. I mean, did that actually set a new high? It did, didn't it? So the NASDAQ actually had a sniff through the old highs. So the highs for the summer, this is the NASDAQ 100, 15,946. And then on Wednesday, went 15,980. So pushed 34 points through those highs. Interesting. So again, what happens to the NASDAQ next week? Do we break out and go back to the all-time highs up here from November 21, so 2 years ago? So really interesting up here. I think these markets a bit overcooked on the RSI, as you'd expect, given the run we've seen since late October. Interesting up here anyway. So let's see what happens next week in stock markets. The DAX has been on a right old rip. Someone mentioned it the other day in the group. We'd had 8 days of green candles, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And today's the 9th. So, surged away the DAX. Again, I think it's interesting, the big level, the market sold off from July, like US stocks did, holds above this sort of spiky low from March, and bang, here we are. Let's see what happens on the DAX. There's a level to watch, 16,060-ish, which was a problem late August, and sort of again in September. Let's see what happens next week. So, interesting stock markets up here. I don't have any. I talk about investments I have, and I'm a big fan of S&P and Nasdaq exchange traded funds. So I've got most of my pension and ISA in those. So if the market goes racing away, it's happy days for that. I don't have any short-term trades on in these markets, so I'm quite interested to see what happens with these. Let's see what happens. FTSE doing its own thing as usual. Pretty sideways overall. Just a bit boring, really. I did buy it yesterday. I bought the FTSE yesterday because the trend had been up. Blah, 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 blah. In the short term, sold off. I bought it. Stop under here. And we're here. So hopefully that goes a bit higher from here. But, pretty boring, I'd say, on the year to date, isn't it? We're sort of trading where we were at the beginning of the year, pretty much on the FTSE. Japan 225, that's interesting as well. Again, we've seen this good rally in the Nikkei. We've got the highs at 34,000. We're 600 points below that at the moment. If you consider this a correction, we're at the top of the correction. So a lot of these stock markets do the same. Are we going to go soaring away, or are we going to struggle? I really don't know, but I will be watching with interest over the next week. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. Let's look at this dollar index. It's another tricky one for me. We had this run from July in the dollar index, and it punched out early October to its best levels since about November. And to me, that looked like the correction from the September 22 highs was over. And then it's sort of gone sideways, and then this week it's fallen off a cliff. I don't know. I would probably be a buyer, but I'm not convinced enough to be a buyer just yet. For the fans of the RSI, the last time we had an oversold signal on the RSI was back in July. We are nudging towards oversold at the moment. I think perhaps the interesting short-term trade, because the level has held all this week, is this 104 level. You know, that was the low it hit on Tuesday. It was sort of a bit of a bounce back by about 50, 60 points as the week went on. It's come back to it again today. So if you really fancy the trade to be a buyer, you thought the market had overreacted, I do quite fancy that trade. Should we do that trade? I couldn't do it last week. I didn't have enough margin in my account. But I've come out with some trades this week. Let's do that trade. Let's say we're going to buy, I am going to buy the dollar index down here. And I'm going to go 103.50 for a stop. A bit further maybe? I don't know. Maybe a bit further. 103.25. It's quite a wide stop, but it's a bit of a volatile market. Let's do that. Let's say I think the market's overreacted, and I'm going to go about 90 points below where the market is. Let's set that trade up. So this is the account that I use for the trades we do on here. So I've closed some trades out. I'll show you the history. So we came out of some trades. Pioneer Natural Resources was in that for a while. Came out of that this week. Got stopped out for a profit. Came out of the gold. I was short gold. I'd moved the stop. Gold's had a bit of a rocket. We'll take a look at the gold in a minute. Came out of that for a small profit. Came out of Shopify for a small loss. Came out of Magna. That was a short for a profit. Last big winner was down here. So this is a £2,000 account. It's £2,700 at the moment, this account, with the open profits. 270 on silver back in October. And these are the other trades I have running. That CrowdStrike, which is, I feel like I've been in that trade forever, is still going well. So I bought that in here somewhere, and that's here. So that's all good. Nvidia, I can't remember when we did that trade. Let's have a look. Nvidia, when did we do that? 20th of October. That trade's doing all right, up about $290. Let's have a quick look at that, because I'm quite intrigued when I put that trade on. Put it in here. All right, that was good. Good trade that was. It's at the top of the range now. Anyway, whatever. Tesla was last week, I think, went short JP Morgan last week. That's losing money. So all winners at the moment, apart from JP Morgan. So let's do this dollar index trade. So I want to be a buyer. Is it going to be called an index, or is it going to be called a currency pair? There we go, dollar. Let's do the dollar index trade. We'll trade the December future. Okay, let's go. So I said about 90 points below where we are now, didn't I? So on the future, that's going to be that like 104.15, something like that. Yeah, that ties up. 103.15. Let's do the trade. So I'm going to be a buyer. So it's a little bit of a gut feeling trade, this. Picking the bottom, saying the market's overreacted. We do have those Fed minutes next week. So I might get a bit of volatility over that. I am still a bit low on my margin. I need to top it up. So I'm only going to trade one contract. So I'm going to be a buyer at 104.10, stop at 103.15. Risk is $95 on that trade. I'm going to tie up 800 quid in margin. Let's go. Done. Okay. Let's see how that works out. So it's not really a textbook trade for me, but I think it's interesting down here. Just, it had been in this big sideways range. Has the market overreacted? We'll find out, won't we? So that's the dollar index. Let's have a quick whiz through some other currency markets. Euro dollar. I think I said last week I'd like to buy a dip on the euro dollar. The dip never happened because of that dollar weakness. This is where we are. I still buy the dip on euro dollar, but not much for me at the moment. I don't think on that. I suppose you could make the argument that short up here, because we've had a bit of a bounce with stops above 109.60 maybe. If we have a look on the hourlies, what does that look like? I don't know. Where's that 109.60 level gone? Here-ish. Maybe. Not one for me. I'd rather be patient and try and buy a dip. The same with pound against the dollar. I think I said last week. I think we were here last week on that red candle. Oh, it was a little green one. Here on Friday. I should have bought. If I was paying attention, I should have bought that. Anyway, I didn't, so it doesn't count. We've zoomed up. I still buy the dip. On the view that perhaps this trend is over. This downtrend is over. Let's see. But they're interesting. But perhaps we see markets in a bit of a holding pattern until this Fed minutes thing is out the way on Tuesday. So that's that. Some of these things against the yen look interesting. I mean, euro yen broke out beginning of the month, selling off. I think that's an interesting market for next week. I'll be a buy of the dip. Swiss yen looks a little bit the same. What does sterling yen look like? I'm guessing it looks pretty much similar as well. Yeah, so I think they're interesting. We've got a bit of yen strength. The last 24 hours has put pressure on these markets, but you know, if you look at the big trend for sterling yen, for example, big trend is up. So I think that's maybe interesting. So that's it for FX. I've got my sterling Aussie trade on, which is a little bit flip-floppy around at the moment. Let's see what happens with that. Let's take a look at oil and natural gas. So oil, I was really surprised by this move, which is obvious because I bought oil. So I didn't, obviously I didn't think it was going to fall off a cliff, did I? I wouldn't have bought it in the first place. But I thought we were going to see a bit of a recovery in oil. But we haven't. You know, we've seen the market go from end of September $95 to $75 today. So $20, 20% drop and a bit more in oil in 6 weeks or so. Interesting. Trend still down. I would absolutely, you know, I was watching this level, 78, thinking, oh, maybe this is where we get, you know, a bit of flip-flop for the oil price and we see the buyers come back in and that sort of thing. So we did get a bit of flip-flop and then we got the flop yesterday. So still weak for me, so I'd have to, at the moment, be a seller of rallies on oil. You know, so there's our trend in oil since October. We go back to September. Yeah, so I'd be a seller of rallies of oil. Let's see what happens. Can it push back up 76, 77 next week? For me, that would be a good short if that happened. So I'm a little bit hands-off on oil at the moment. Let's see. But natural gas, it's going down again today. Natural gas, I did a video on natural gas earlier this week and I said I'd buy the dip and I still buy the dip. We just got a better entry point now. So it's an interesting market. You know, we've had the trend in natural gas up since May. We had the low earlier in November at 280. We're at 283 today. I buy the dip. That's it, because the trend is up. So for me, as usual, the only question is, where does my stop go? I would probably have it below here, those late August, early September lows. So 244, the other side of. So really interesting market to watch next week, natural gas. I've missed opportunities to get in on this year. I've not traded this, I think, hardly at all this year. But I think for me, that would be, assuming it doesn't continue to fall hard, that would be a buy the dip, I think. Natural gas next week. Let's see what happens. Gold and silver. Gold, I think this has been quite a confusing market. I put it in the WhatsApp group today. You know, if we take it back a bit, you know, it had been in a sideways range since the end of October. So sideways range, bang, 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 bang. I made a bit of money on a short on the way down, not much. Fell out of the range. So this time last week, we were out of the range. And then it's raced up like an absolute lunatic this week. I don't know. I think for me, I'd feel much happier going short. But that trend for the week so far is still up. I think, again, it might be an interesting market next week if it has a look above 2,000 and struggles again. So I think maybe that's the interesting thing next week in gold. Silver, I mean, silver's had a right old run, you know, going from 22 to 24. Is that just this week? It is just this week. 10% move in silver. But if you go back on the dailies, if you really want to go short silver, this is where we are. We've come back, the fourth test of the trend line. That is a textbook short, that is. Let's see where it is on Monday. But yeah, it's almost a gravestone doji we're seeing today for fans of the old candlestick patterns. I haven't seen one of those for a long time. There we go. So interesting market for next week. But yeah, I would probably, if I had to do anything, I would be going short, I think, at the moment on that one. But interesting, you know, because that trend's been going since May of this year. Let's see how it turns out. So that's that one. And Bitcoin. What's Bitcoin doing? The crazy world of crypto. I'd still buy the dip on Bitcoin. It'd be nice to get a bigger dip than where we are at the moment. You know, we've got the trend still up on Bitcoin since the beginning of this year, end of last year. If it got knocked back below 30, I think it's interesting. It's trading at 36,000 at the moment. So I think that's an interesting market for next week. So there's not a lot at the moment for me to sort of jump on and think, oh, there's a trade there. The most obvious one for me to watch closely is, where's it gone? Natural gas, because we're in our trend for the year. So I think that's quite an interesting one. Everything else is a bit wait and see. Stock markets are the most interesting next for me, because we're pushing back up near these big levels. So the risk reward of going short is attractive up here, but we have had a good trend for the last couple of weeks. So a little bit tricky. And the dollar index, just because it's been faffing around that 104 level. So I put the trade on, slightly against me at the moment because of the spread. Let's see how that pans out. So bits and pieces to watch. Those Fed minutes on Tuesday. Let's see what happens. So this is where we jump into the stuff you want looking at. Just a reminder, if you want access to those 2 webinars, drop me an email. I will get around to sending them all out over the weekend. dj@davidjonestrading.co.uk. I think those are the best things I've done in many years. And that's speaking from someone who has quite a high opinion of the stuff that he does when it comes to markets. So if you haven't seen them, I think hopefully there's something in there for everybody. So drop me an email and I'll send the links out to those. Right, let's have a look at some of the stuff you want looking at. What's the first one? Was Cisco a buy yesterday? Well, if it went up, yes it was. But let's have a look at it. Let's have a look. No, because it's got absolutely clobbered, doesn't it? Is that yesterday? That's yesterday's trade. So earnings, isn't it? The old earnings shock on Cisco. What happened with the earnings then? There's positive surprise and a positive revenue surprise. So clearly there's still something in there that the market didn't like. Let's have a look at the old, what's it? It's interesting. I mean, I think I always say on earnings, there was those couple of trades, Shopify that lost money and the other one, whatever it was called, that made money. Those were both going against Magna International, that was it. Those were both going against an earnings surprise. I would be a buyer. There you go. So even though that trend on Cisco, that was textbook. That was a textbook buy at 52, and here we are at 48. I'd buy it. Let's buy it. I'd rather have bought yesterday, the Harry Hindsight trade. But it's interesting. They gapped on the earnings. 45.56 held. Let's buy Cisco, and the thing is oversold as well. So I would take the view it's an overreaction. Let's do the trade. So what am I saying? 45.50. Okay, we go 45 for a stop. Let's do that trade. Do you know what? These trades on these live streams do tend to do well. This now means that every trade from now on will lose money. So I should really risk more money on these trades. But anyway, what did I say for the stop? $45 for the stop. 45. How much money have I got in the account? All right, let's trade. I keep saying I'm going to put some money in this account, and I keep forgetting, obviously. All right, we'll trade 20 Cisco. So 20 Cisco with a stop of 45. Blah, blah, blah. Let's place the trade. Done. There we go. Let's see how that little one works out. Tight spread on Cisco. Yeah, so there we go. That's that one. Interesting one. That I do like these earnings surprises, and my knee-jerk reaction is to go against the surprise. Assuming the market has overreacted. But let's see. But, so, like these stock trades are always medium-term trades for me. Some of these trades in here, the Coke trade, when we do the Coke trade, ages ago. Down here. Not ages ago, about a month ago. So I'm quite happy to sit with these stock trades for a month or more and see how they all turn out. But let's see how Cisco goes. Interesting one, that. Can you talk a little bit about taxes for the profits in your trades and how you manage them? If you're a UK taxpayer, you trade using spread betting, and you trade using spread betting. Taxes, it's a tax-free product. So again, of course, you shouldn't take my word for it. If you're really concerned about taxes, you should seek professional advice. But in the UK, spread betting is a tax-free way of trading. If you trade using contracts for difference, they are taxed the same way gains on shares are taxed. So you are liable to capital gains tax allowance, and that allowance has come right down, isn't it? It used to be 12 grand. Here we go. and now it's 6 grand. So your first 6 grand is tax-free on CFDs and shares. And then anything after that, you get taxed at whatever your normal tax rate is. But I'm not an accountant, I'm not a tax lawyer. If you're not sure, investigate it. Okay? The downside of spread betting, from a tax point of view, if you lose money, you can't offset it against other capital gains because it's not capital gains taxable. With CFDs, if you lose money, you can offset. If you lost 10 grand trading CFDs and you made 20 grand on shares, you can offset your 10 grand loss against 20 grand gain on the shares. So blah, blah, blah. But there you go. That's the headline figures. Investigate it more yourself if you want to find out more. What do you think about $80 being support for Alibaba? Or will it break right through? Let's have a look. Baba. $80 support. It is through it already. So we have broken the support today. Interesting one again, that one, you know. I mean, again, what's the aggressive trade here? The aggressive trade, I wouldn't do the trade today. I'd see where it was on Monday. I'd be a buyer. So I would take the view, all right, we had a little dribble through support even. That's an earnings shock as well, isn't it? So I would take the view, I'm going to be a buyer and see what happens. The market's overreacted. So that would be one for Monday for me. I can't remember if you're in the WhatsApp group. I don't think you are. But if someone is here in that, let's have a look at that on Monday. I think that's interesting though. Let's see where it settles today. So yeah, interesting one. Can we have a look at SGP? SGP Stockland. SGP Stockland. Stockland, this one. Stock CFD. Got no idea what they are, but what do you think? I don't know. I suppose from a textbook point of view, I would be a seller, I suppose. Go short. I would go short. I'd go short wherever they're trading now. I've got no idea what it is. At 4. It's Australian dollars. I go short at 4 with a stop at 4.40 because the trend has been down. Is what I would do. And then it's not that an exciting one for me, but that's what I would be tempted to do with that. Can I have a look at dollar, Polish zloty? Yeah, remember this one? Let's take a look at that. What has that done? I'm quite intrigued with this one. Let's see. Oh, it's got clobbered, hasn't it? I remember looking at that one the other week. I think that's an interesting one. I think I've learned, because someone mentioned it before, there's been an election, I think, hasn't there, going on in Poland. I would be tempted to be a buyer. So we have fallen out of the trend. So we had the downtrend in the dollar against the Polish zloty. We had the trend that was going up. Absolutely would have been a buyer into that. Absolutely would have got stopped out. It's interesting what happens now. So that's not relevant. That's not that relevant. What's relevant to me is the lows from July at 393. So, you know, the argument is if you want to be a buyer, if I'm a buyer now at 403, I put a stop the other side of 393. I'd probably rather wait till Monday. Let's let things calm down. But it's interesting to me. I never trade it, but just looking at, you know, what's happened in the trends, there's been some great trends in the dollar against the zloty. So for me, that 393 or even 390, the lows from Feb 22, is a big level. And sterling, Polish, wow, it's that would have wrong-footed me as well. So I don't trade it. I would absolutely have bought into that, and I'd have bought the dip, and bang, it's collapsed. So we've definitely had Polish zloty strength, haven't we? So something. Let's have a look. I'm quite intrigued. What's caused this? I guess there's been some sort of political resolution. What's the news? Oh, there's been no news for like a month, I can see, putting zloty strength in. Let's take Poland politics. Poland politics. US happy that incoming Polish government will improve relations with EU, says ambassador. Okay, opposition politician elected Speaker of Parliament. So I think that's it. I think clearly the markets are happy with what's going on in Polish politics. So this is the pound weakening against the zloty. So what's interesting is, like, that's the reaction to the news. Is it a short-term reaction to the news? So again, I wouldn't be a buyer of the pound against the zloty at the moment, but it's interesting to see if perhaps some of these moves unwind next week. And I think the person who asked the question is closer to what's going on than me there. So let's see what happens with that. Medtronic, MDT, Medtronic. I would go short, Medtronic. What do they do? Health technology. Trend is down, isn't it? The trend is most definitely down in Medtronic. Looks like that. So I would look to sell a rally. You know, it was only end of October, Halloween, appropriately enough. It wasn't Halloween, actually. It made a new low for the down move, so I'd sell the rally. The only question is, well, the big question for you, where did my stop go? I'd rather have a much stronger rally up to 80, but I would be looking to go short. Aussie yen, Aussie JPY. I'm guessing it's going to be a bit similar. Oh, it's interesting though, isn't it? It's right bang on that level. It stopped. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, it's run out of steam up here in last September. If you want to go short, go short. So stops above 99. We have seen that yen strength in the last 24 hours. I wonder if we'll get another little squeeze up. It's maybe an interesting one for next week. Looking to buy the dip if it stabilises, but with the understanding that 98.6 is a big level. Interesting one. CAD JPY. CAD JPY. Same with that, isn't it? I think I wonder again, will we get another squeeze up to 110, 111? I don't like those as much as the likes of sterling yen and, where's it gone? Euro yen. I think those trends, and Swiss yen, those trends are much clearer to me. So I would swerve Canada against the Japanese yen. But let's see what happens. When would you give up on a strategy? Would you give a certain time limit or a certain number of trades to know whether a strategy works or not? Good question. I don't think I've ever given up on anything, to be honest, because I think one of the things you absolutely need to give it time. Obviously, give a strategy time. You can't just decide after one trade, well, that was a ridiculous idea. You know, you need to give it a bit of a run, don't you? And I think probably what happens to mine is, and I talk about them in the training course. I've got 6 strategies that I use. There's one I favour over and above everything else. But I think what's happened with me is, over time, they've evolved, you know, around things like where stop losses go, being a bit more patient and perhaps a couple more rules for an entry point. So I don't think I've ever completely binned a strategy, not in recent years anyway, but I've maybe adapted it. So I've started with an idea. The idea has been perhaps okay, but not fantastic, and then sort of tweaked it as I went along, if that makes any sense. So yeah, so that's my approach. I think you need a good editor for your YouTube channel. I do the editing. What are you trying to say? You're going to send me an email. Thanks. I'm guessing you're going to offer to do the editing and charge me money for it. Can you look at the XLY on the hourly? There's a little uptrend there. XLY on the hourly. The spider, what's this? Consumer discretionary funds. There's an uptrend on the hourly. I mean, it's a bit boring, isn't it? On the bigger picture. It's quite gappy, isn't it? And then, you know, if you're going to be a pedant, you could say the trend is still down since July. Let's see what that looks like, blah, blah, blah. And someone said natural gas. We did do natural gas. You can rewind the video. We did do euro yen as well. What do you think? Oh, I don't know. On the dailies, okay, you're saying on the hourlies there's a trend. Yeah, there is a trend on the hourlies, isn't there? So if you were trading the hourlies on this consumer discretionary ETF on the what's it, you'd be a buyer. I'd be a buyer. Where would my stop go? My stop would probably go below 158 on the hourly. So I'd have an $8 plus stop, let's say a $10 stop. It's interesting, isn't it? If it runs back up to the old highs from July, I'd just be a bit concerned about that downtrend, whatever it is. We've got conflicting trends, haven't we? Let's see what happens. It's about 18 days. I haven't found a trade according to my setup. I'm a day trader. What do you think about it? That's odd for a day trader not to find a trade in 18 days. I mean, I'm not a day trader, and I find about 3 to 5 trades a week. So I don't know. Maybe it's just a quiet time for your approach. You know, there are absolutely times when I look at the market and I can't see anything. This morning, I've not done a trade today. I didn't do a trade yesterday. Did you trade yesterday? I don't think so. Did I buy the foot? Was it yesterday I bought the FTSE? I can't remember. Let's have a look. But there was absolutely, yeah, I bought the FTSE yesterday. But there wasn't a trade for me this morning. And quite often there's not a trade on a Monday for me, and then it all starts again on a Tuesday. But to go 18 days without having a trade if you're a day trader seems a bit obvious to me, a bit odd to me, I would say. Let's see what these T-bonds do. Okay. Were the first 2 years of trading difficult? Yes, they were. Can you share any times of hardship when starting off trading? Yeah, I mean, not hardship. I mean, I was trading far too big for my account size. I talk about it a bit on one of those webinars. I think it was the first webinar, so you can watch it on that. I lost money like everybody. I lost money for I wasn't consistent for 7 years, you know, and it was really, I did the same mistakes everyone did. Traded too big. I always used stop losses because I was petrified of the market collapsing and taking all my money. But I traded too tight with the stop losses. I got panicked out of good trades that would have been even better trades. You know, I did all the usual stuff really. So yeah, I didn't destroy my first trading account, but I definitely run it down by more than 60% before I thought I've got to try and change things here. And then all of that wisdom is distilled into my trading course. So there you go. I sometimes listen to your videos when running. I know I can't see the charts, but I listen. And if I hear something I want to look at, I do. Well, there you go. Top tip. Can you make your webinars and videos into a podcast, please? I'd love to say yes. The problem is I'm really lazy. So that is an issue. So it's a really good idea. And I will be looking at producing more content. But don't hold your breath on that one, is what I'm going to say for that. I only trade 2 pairs, EU and XU, I think, in the last 3 months of the year. Okay, I don't know. I mean, I trade lots of different markets. So there's all, you know, you can see the list of markets on the right-hand side here. And that's the stuff I look at. So, yeah, maybe, I don't know. If you've got a sensible strategy and it's not throwing up any trades in the markets you're watching, perhaps try and broaden the markets that you want to watch, you know, because in theory, if you have a strategy, and I definitely find this, if I have a strategy that works in the S&P, the dollar index, and oil, then really it should work in gold, natural gas, and T-bonds, because my strategies obviously are pretty much chart based. So yeah, that is what I would suggest, is perhaps broaden out the markets you're looking at. Try that for size. And if that's it, if that's all the questions, that's all the questions. What's happening with those little trades? We're underwater a little bit on Cisco, underwater a bit on the dollar index. Not unusual for me to be underwater at the beginning, even on the big winners. Let's see what happens. So next week, what are we going to watch? What am I going to watch? Stock markets. Are they going to run out of steam up here? I don't know, but I think it's interesting. Up at these levels, that's the Nasdaq. That's the old what's it? The S&P. Let's see what happens. Dollar index, are we going to see a bit of a bounce back? I did the trade today. I think it's interesting down here. Let's see what happens with that one. And natural gas, still weak today. So no trade for me today. But let's see, do we see this trend continue in natural gas? And that's it, I think, if there's no questions. So someone's put Disney in. Let's have a look at Disney. Let's have a look at those, see what they look like. I would be very tempted to go short Disney up here. So we have had the downtrend since March 2021, 2.5 year downtrend in Disney. We have had quite the rally, big old rally from 80 to 94. I would not believe the rally at the moment, so I would go short with stops, I don't know, above $100. I'd perhaps wait till Monday because it's still a bit strong today. But it's an interesting one, that. So it's a nice one, that, to see what happens with that one. So let's see. Cisco downgraded by JP Morgan. Let's have a look. What have they done? Have they moved a lot since we put the trade on? No, not really. Let's see. Let's see how it works. We'll have a look at it next week. So as usual, I'll do the live stream next Friday, the usual old stuff. Take a look at stuff. If you want to see those free webinars, drop me an email. They're about an hour and 10 minutes long, each of them. So if you send me an email, dj@davidjonestrading.co.uk, I will send the links out over the weekend. I've done this partnership with this broker. I'll talk about it a lot more. There are going to be a lot more webinars for people who open an account. If you want to see it, go to bit.ly David Trade. You can open an account, make sure you're on the list. I'll include all the details in the email anyway if you want to see the webinars. Otherwise, we are done for the day, I think. Have a good weekend. Let's see what happens next week. Fed minutes on Tuesday. Let's see what they look like. Let's see if markets turn around up here. I don't know. And we'll come back and do it all again on Friday. So until then, good luck with your trading and see you next Friday.